is owned and operated by Second Chance Productions. Streaming Praise Radio is streaming live at www.2ndchancepro.com. Streaming Praise Radio is broadcast in English at 33 kilobytes per second, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Streaming Praise Radio is your station.
The station with the best music. Best music.
I love the music.
Best music.
Coming to you live 24 hours, 7 days a week. You are listening to Streaming Praise Radio, first internet Christian broadcasting station operating in Toronto, Canada. You are listening to Streaming Praise Radio.
Communicating the gospel through music and spoken word via the internet. Streaming Praise Radio.
Thank you for tuning in to Rebuilding the Black Family with Pastor Carl Lewis and myself, Clement Humphrey. Rebuilding the Black Family is dedicated to discussing principles essential to building strong, productive, and successful families. Please join the conversation by liking, following, and sharing us from our Facebook page. And that's facebook.com/Foundation for Life Church and facebook.com/SPR Live FM. Now, let's join Pastor Carl and me, Clement Humphrey.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and I'm hoping that we're doing everything right today and you actually can hear us. Why do I sound like I'm echoing and I'm not even hearing myself? Did you hear that sound too?
I can hear it a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm going to be checking in to make sure that we are live and we're not just hearing dead air today as we did the last time. So all of a sudden, all of my Wi-Fi doesn't seem to be working. Yeah, we are live. So,
all right.
Yeah, we are live. We're good to go.
Let's get going.
We're good to go. We're good to go. So, I think I know why it is. Yeah, I think I know why it is. That's all good. Here we go. There we go.
All right. Well, let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen.
You said you said Toronto's first streaming.
Toronto first internet gospel radio station, and we have been doing this now for 17 years.
Well, congratulations.
And we thank God for that. We thank God for being able to accomplish that task. So,
well, congratulations for your persistence and long suffering and patience and staying with it. So, congratulations.
Thank you,
it's
sir.
a good day.
It is.
All right. Well, fall is about upon us. Well, I guess no, technically fall isn't until when? About the 22nd of September, something like that. We're still officially in summer, I believe. Still summer.
Yeah, we still have a little bit of summer going on.
Summer. All right. Good.
So it seems to me as though, are you hearing me clearly through my mic, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. I tend to get a little concerned if I'm not hearing myself. I'm good.
Yeah, you sounded better now. You did sound a bit low,
Right.
but now I think it's picked up. Yep. I know you have a, what's it, I understand, let's not go there. It's all right. It's
just the air just
I understood.
We're not happening.
All right,
Yeah,
so,
if I can do this very quickly, if you don't mind me
go ahead.
intruding on your program. Today it's my eldest son's birthday.
Wonderful.
Actually, he's officially 30 years. He's in his 30s now, and I said, son, once you hit 30, it's just downhill from there.
no, you didn't tell him that. You said life begins at 30.
I says it speeds up, man. That age speed, you know, you turn around, you're like 50 years old. But he's all good. He's all good. He understands fully what we do. And
Well, let's shout it out to him.
yeah, so happy birthday to you. Hope you're having a wonderful time.
Oh, is that Claremont?
Cole Anthony. His name is Cole Anthony.
Cole
and he is he's the firstborn. So it says you actually celebrating your 30th birthday in marriage.
Wow.
You know, since I thought,
Congratulations.
this is awesome. This is
Fantastic.
awesome. Yes, it is awesome. It is awesome. So we thank God for that, and thank God for what He's doing in his life.
Wonderful. Spoken like a proud father.
Oh, yeah.
You're proud of him, and so that's wonderful. Beautiful.
Amen.
Wonderful.
If I can only see myself on Facebook, I'm
It'll
not sure
come.
why it's happening, why we're circulating this long, but it's all good. We're going to get there eventually. But we thank God for what He's doing with us here on Streaming Praise. And I thank God for you too, because believe it or not, folks are enjoying what they see and what they hear. And I tell some folks the other day, I says, I'm glad that you're enjoying it, and I hope you implement some of the things that you hear in your own personal life, because I know sometimes we say we enjoying stuff, and that's as far as it goes, right? We enjoy, and then we stop right there. But
as you said, we do appreciate the people who are tuning in every week, and even people going online later on to view the program and share the program, as well as give feedback. We really appreciate those of you who are doing that on a very consistent basis. So thank you very, very much. We do appreciate it. Plus, all those of you who are continuing to share the word, tell it to your friends, your networks, your family, co-workers, neighbors, and let them know about the program, because that's how it gets out, and that's how the good news gets out, is through those of us who've been impacted by it, telling other people. So, praise God. It's good. Good to have you again. Good to be here.
good to be here.
We are live.
And correct.
Let's make it happen.
That's right.
So now, we're going to, any other announcements you want to make briefly? Any thing that you want to comment?
I know we've spoken briefly about there's a program coming up this week. You want to talk about that briefly?
Our program?
Your
My program. Oh, I wasn't. Okay, well, if you want.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
You know, this is what this is for. You know.
Okay, well, we do have for those of you who are pastors, ministers, church leaders, we are having a ministerial fellowship at 55 Beverly Hills Drive in Toronto, Ontario at 2 p.m. That's Saturday, September the 16th at 2 p.m. Would love to have you if you're a pastor, church leader. I'm going to talk to you about, so it's a ministerial fellowship. Lord spoke to me some time ago about having this, and so we're going to have this really launch a ministerial fellowship that I believe is going to really help a lot of pastors and ministers, and particularly those who are up and coming, and also new ministers. It's going to be a tremendous blessing to you. We're going to talk about the premise and purpose, what the Lord told me about it, why we're doing this. There's other wonderful ministerial fellowships, a lot of wonderful people doing wonderful things out there, but this is something the Lord's laid on my heart, and we need to be obedient to Him. And it's going to be a tremendous launch, if you will. So you can give us a call, let us know you're coming, or just come, 416-614-1220, or send us an email, carllewis@foundationforlife.ca, and hope to see you Saturday, September the 16th at 2 p.m. at 55 Beverly Hills Drive in Toronto. And that's close to Jane and Wilson. So it'll be a blessing to you. Also, our website, foundationforlife.ca, a lot of very good resources. Thanks again for those of you who've been sharing that. A lot of free resources you can get online and really learn a lot over a short period of time if you'll be diligent. And so thank you very much again. So thanks for sharing that. Praise God.
Not only that, I want you to talk a little bit about this. The
Foundation for Leaders 101. It's a book we released recently. In fact, the back of it actually says August 2017, and so not the inside back page, but it's okay. But Foundation for Leaders, and so I'll tell you what the back here, it says Foundation for Leaders 101 is a guide for preparing local church leaders. Specifically, it is designed with the objective of contributing to the development of high-quality, trustworthy leaders, supportive ministries, and helps personnel, officers, board members, staff, assistant pastors, as well as pastors and other ministry gifts whose leadership will have a positive impact in every arena of society. And so a big goal, we looked at this, God gave me this to release into the world and into the church, to be a resource in training leaders of integrity so that the church will realize its destiny in this generation. So you can get your copy on Amazon.com or Amazon.ca. So take advantage of that. I believe it will be a tremendous blessing. We also are teaching this to local church leaders, also groups of pastors. So we're going to communicate that a bit more in the future. So again, thanks for reminding me of that. Thank you very much.
Right. Well, the reason for me saying that is because I thought that is something that we need to be doing a little bit more constantly, where we can actually telling the folks, broadcasting more. And I know I'm fiddling with my earpiece here because I need to hear certain things. You know, the last time somebody said, "Why do you keep running with yourself?" We're trying to get our system running right. So
okay, well, let's get in. We're getting there.
We get in there. There we go.
So what we're going to continue on today is this. We was talking about the marriage, and as part of an overall picture of the family, obviously. And we've been talking about family, marriage. We've been specifically addressing the importance of the man in the home, or specifically the importance of the husband in the marriage relationship. You do remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Messing with you, man. And so what we're going to look at, last week we looked at the husband's responsibility to his wife. Have I gone down?
No,
we're good?
You're good.
So the husband's responsibility to his wife. And so that's really important. Again, thanks for the feedback on that and the support and the encouragement those of you have been sharing. But we want to share the truth of these things because it's so important in our homes, in our lives. And we started last week, again, really identifying the husband's responsibility to his wife. And again, I may reiterate, we're not up here looking down on anyone. The thing is this, we've learned some things, and looking back, we wish we had learned them many years ago, preferably before we got married. And so the goal here in teaching these things is to not only help existing couples, because God can work miracles, God can transform relationships as we listen to his Spirit and as we obey his word, but also to those people who are contemplating marriage, so that you can truly count the cost and be truly prepared for that marriage relationship. So a couple things I'm going to do today. We're going to review some things we said and then get into moving forward. But we're going to talk about this. I'm going to start by, this is the title today. This is what we're going to say.
Okay.
What a wife needs. So what a wife needs. That's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at what a wife needs. Maybe next we're going to tell you what a husband needs.
Right. And
I'm telling you, folks, these things are very important. Now, when I say what a wife needs, I think about it this way. Usually I'm around people who are really good gardeners. You know, they're avid gardeners. In other words, they plant. You see, you're like, see, I didn't know that. See, you're one of those green fingers too.
Oh,
and that's interesting.
It's so green, isn't funny.
So now, the thing is this. So you can, amplify this, or you can confirm this, that you do know that you can have the best plants.
Correct.
The best fruits and vegetables. But if you don't water them, what's going to happen?
You're looking for a dead plant.
You'll have a dead plant.
Like the plant we have up there right now.
Yes, it's not been, so you never paid any attention to it.
Yeah.
Right? It's been ignored.
That's
It's not been watered.
Right.
Now the thing is this then, we're talking about what a wife needs. So then if we as husbands, if we don't know, think about this now, what our wife needs. One. And number two, if we don't supply what our wife needs, then what can happen, you can, over time, you can have a dead relationship. You see the parallel to it? Now, people might not be dead physically, don't get me wrong, but what I'm trying to say is that marriage is not as fruitful as it was intended to be.
Good.
Now, it's amazing how we see that in other areas, but we sometimes miss it in some of the most important areas.
Correct.
So the thing is this, we could be saying, so husbands are responsible, if we will, to feed that relationship certain things.
Correct.
To impart into that relationship certain things so that we can get the best out of that relationship, so that your wife can be the best and realize the best in her life. So it can be a fruitful, healthy, meaningful relationship.
Correct.
You got that? So we're going to talk about this is what your wife, and think about this, if it's what your wife needs, she could be, think about this, she could be the brightest woman, the most beautiful woman, the most accomplished woman. She could be in corporate Canada, corporate America, corporate Europe, corporate Africa, corporate Asia, very successful in the corporate world.
Right.
The thing is this, though, and you still not have a healthy marriage. Isn't it interesting? Some of the most successful people in the world, think about it, most successful,
Right.
but over time, they're no longer together.
Right.
I'm just saying all that to get to the point here that a marriage has to be fed, like that plant you alluded to, has to be fed.
Absolutely.
Has to be fed. So we need to know as men, what do you feed your wife? What does she need? Now think about this, no matter who that woman is. Your wife needs some things. She needs. Now, when I'm saying this is not an option. This is not a recommendation. This is not something she can do without. This is what she needs. And again, she could be the most intelligent, the most accomplished, the most professional person out in the world, but yet in the home, when it comes into that marriage, she needs some things from you as her husband. So we could say she's that garden. What are you putting in that garden?
What do you plant?
What are you planting?
All right.
Are we ready to go?
Yeah, we're ready to go.
I'm just saying all that to get us ready. So again, we're talking about what your wife needs. Now, the first thing she needs is this.
We're gonna have fun with this one today, right?
But I'm telling you, this is so important, folks. I'm telling you, this is so important. In fact, I was I think preparing to teach on some of these things, and I had other messages prepared, but I was lying down at one time, and I was just so impressed. The Lord gave me all these things, these points that I'm about to give to you. So I really have a real conviction that this is something that will really help our lives and help men, help marriages, so we can really flourish and blossom. Think about it, God never intended for our homes to be full of strife. It's supposed to be an enjoyable. I'm not saying there won't going to be challenges, yes, but the thing is, it's over time, and just even in life itself, we're going to face enough challenges externally. He wanted us to have peaceful, growing, flourishing homes, but there's certain ingredients that have to go with that.
Absolutely.
We've got to cooperate with it. So the first one is this. Are we good?
Yeah, we good. We
All
good.
right. I'm just asking if you're
We
ready.
good.
Okay.
Because I want you to get into it because I've had some questions before based on the same topic you're going
Okay, all right. Okay, so what does a wife need? Well, number one, she needs permanence of covenant commitment. Number one, permanence
I need to write this down
of covenant
I don't want to forget
commitment.
my questions.
Well, you can get the recording. You can get.
No, I don't want to forget my questions.
Okay, good. So she needs permanence of covenant commitment. Now, remember we said this. We alluded to this, I think, last week. Genesis 2:24. Therefore shall a man leave after Eve was created. It says, therefore shall a man leave his father and mother, and be joined or cleave to his wife, and they two shall become one flesh. And we said then that husband is responsible for leaving
And cleaving.
And we said that word cleave means one of the biggest, strongest words. It means to hold fast to be joined to be glued to. And even if you look into that, if you could understand that, just taking a little side journey a little bit, we can see then why when a divorce happens, the paperwork is done and you're legally separated.
Right.
But if two people were joined, glued together, think about this now, so they've been joined together, why many times years go by and there's still heartache and pain. Because those two people were joined together, glued, and if you pull something together that's been joined together, then, that's going to cause some problems. And so, she needs permanence of covenant commitment. So she needs to know that this husband is completely committed to me. Like committed. So when he said, remember the marriage thing, I might allude to this last week, I believe also, that the old ceremonies, some people still carry it, and I really believe it's right, part of it would say, in sickness
and in health.
For richer, for poorer.
Excuse me.
Till death do us part. Now, we know that, listen, riches, poorer, sickness, health, those are temporary. Temporary. But the mentality was this: no matter what we face, I'll always be with you. Nothing will separate me from you. And so, that's what, this is really, really, really important. Every wife needs her husband to be completely committed to her. That is resolute in his commitment.
I just want to interject here,
Yep.
not for the purpose of what
Yeah,
you're
please,
saying.
go ahead.
To our listeners, those of you listening on Facebook, feel free to send your commentaries right away, because the last time we got commentaries after the fact, and somebody had said that we're not watching. I'm paying attention today, so send your commentaries or your questions that you want to ask right away, and we'll be able to deal with it on the spot.
Fantastic. So every wife needs, is that good? We're good?
Yeah, be good.
So every wife needs permanence of covenant commitment. Okay, so again, what does that mean? It means he is completely committed to her. So when she wakes up in the morning, she's not plagued with the thought, well, I wonder if he's going to be gone tomorrow or next week.
Right.
Because can you imagine the torment that some wives face because they don't know if their husband's going to be there tomorrow? See that?
Yeah.
She doesn't know that if his heart is completely committed to her, or if she's going to be, he's going to be down the road with someone else next week or next month. So the thing is this: what will lend to a healthy marriage, or what your wife needs, again, permanence of covenant commitment. I am sold out to you. We are joined together. We're one. You don't ever have to worry about where I'll be. I'm committed to you. That is a need.
Right.
Not a recommendation. This is a need. Now, let me go on, because I did mention that last week. Number 2, she needs. What does a wife need? Again, need. She needs love, affection, and acceptance. She needs love, acceptance, and affection. Now, isn't it interesting? Ephesians chapter 5, verse 21 to 33. Now, Paul says this. It's interesting. He tells you, gives commands, specific commands to the wife. Commands now, not suggestions. And specific commands to the husbands. And both are different. What he says to the husband is not the same what he says to the wife. Isn't it interesting? So he tells the wife, husbands, love your wives. Now, think about this now. That is a command. Why? It's necessary.
Right.
And if it's a command, if it's disobeyed, if it's not followed, there are going to be some repercussions to it.
Right.
So the thing what's happening is this: Christians, in our marriages, we've been functioning like the world and getting the same results. Now, I should say this. Look at the context. I was telling our people on Sunday that the context of Ephesians 5, because we need to see, it's important to know who's speaking to who. He's speaking to Christian believers in Ephesians 5. Think about this. Now I'm going to say this also. I should say this. The context of this, if you look, Ephesians 5 comes after Ephesians 1, 2, 3, 4. And in chapter 1, he talks about what the work of Christ. Chapter 2, what the work of Christ means for you. Chapter 3 goes on building the mystery of Christ. Chapter 4 talks about serving one another. So in that context, think about this now. Talks about the body of Christ. Talks about leaders in the church, apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers. And so it's interesting. He's saying that I'm just reading a note here.
Yeah. I just want you to see that.
We're going to get to that.
Yeah.
But you see, you know what? The thing is why it's important to say this. Someone might say, okay, someone just wrote a note in.
Yeah.
It's easy to say these things when you have a good relationship. Oh, no. True. I'm not just saying that. And I'm really love the comments. We really appreciate it, no matter if it's negative or positive. We really appreciate it. The thing is this: if we know these things, I'm telling you from our perspective,
Right.
and we're not up here saying, well, we're up here and looking down at anybody else. We're saying we've learned some things in God's Word, and our goal, God is helping us to use us to help other people. The thing is this: from what I know now scripturally, I understand why relationships got bad,
Right.
or how they started bad,
Right.
or how some of them got destroyed. It was because sometimes there was a failure, a lack of knowledge
Right.
of God's Word.
Right.
You didn't know.
Right.
Hosea 4:6 says this: "My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge." Now that's not destroyed physically.
Right.
That could be a destruction of relationships because you didn't know. We didn't. I'm just saying. I just admitted I didn't know these things when I got married. See, I didn't know that. I didn't know what I should have known. What someone should have taught me. And so the thing is this: if you know, well, so if some people tell me, "Oh, that's why these things failed. Oh, that's why my marriage failed." So that way, if you know, then you can make sure you don't get into the wrong relationship, one, and how to work in that new relationship. Or if you're still married, if you're both willing, how to change the relationship so it becomes flourishing and fruitful and productive and positive.
Okay. What I wanted to come in with is that we're already halfway through the program, by the way. But this is a very interesting thing. You may have to split this in two.
Oh yeah,
we can't finish.
We're not going to rush.
Right,
Yeah, I'm not going to rush it.
And the reason is because the question to come up just can be is talking about having a good relationship. Just because you have a good relationship prior to this stuff, and we talk about not knowing. You didn't know not knowing.
Exactly.
There's a difference with you, difference with me and everybody else, right? But there's also a difference between understanding from the Christian's perspective and understanding from the world's perspective.
Exactly.
Right? And even those in the Christian perspective still have diverse outlook of how things happens, right? For example, the first part of the statement you made, woman's needs, and we probably may spend weeks on this when we go along this, because we're going to have a lot of interaction based on this, because I know there's a lot of women out there who wants to jump in on this particular part. Permanent covenant.
Commitment.
Covenant or commitment?
Commitment. Three words. The first thing. Permanent covenant commitment.
Permanent covenant commitment.
Yes.
But there, you must agree with me that, or would you agree with me that there's a difference between commitment and covenant?
Well, I'm defining the kind of commitment. When I say permanent covenant commitment, I'm defining the kind of commitment is covenant commitment.
Okay.
You see, so I'm using it as a descriptive of what kind of commitment. It's a covenant commitment, so that means it's, for you to understand that, then we have to understand what is a covenant. So a covenant is a binding agreement that can't be broken. So that's why I'm defining that stuff. But also you mentioned a good point. I need to say this, that I said Ephesians 5 was written to Christians. So yes, we're saying up front, there is going to be a difference, if we do it right, between a Christian's understanding of marriage and someone who is not a Christian. Absolutely. Why? Because the Bible gives specific instructions as to what Christians are supposed to believe and practice in marriage. Well, if someone doesn't know or is not submitted to the Lordship of Jesus Christ, well, they don't know what the Word says about marriage. Do you see what I'm saying? And so we could say it this way: the quality of marriage that they have, think about this now, if it has very little understanding of the Word of God, it's going to be different from what God's Word says. Now think about this.
Now, before you say that, I want to jump in on that particular part, the difference of understanding between Christians and non-Christian.
Yeah.
I will disagree with it a little bit. I'll tell you why. I've met someone who's not a Christian. As a matter of fact, they don't even like to hear the word God in church. But the one thing that they understood about marriage was, the fact is that they said, from their past, and I will tell you what I see later on. From their past, seeing how the great grandfather, their grandfather, and their father operated with their spouse, right, their wives. He did not want to be like that, so he told himself, the woman he's going to find or marry, so to speak, has to be his soulmate. So I said to him, where you get the word from, soulmate? He said, man, it has to be your soulmate. I said, that's kind of like, taking what the word of God says, but breaking it down to your word, soulmate. That says, it's not written in the Bible, soulmate, but it's, when you define what the scripture is saying, it's calling soulmate. So where'd you get it from? He said, I know, but I understand what soulmate means. I said, okay. So he's been married for like almost 40-something years. So he decided that if he's looking for a wife, and it took a while to get married because he got married like in his 40s.
Gotcha.
And and he's been married for a number of years now. And he said, so when he found his wife, the first thing he said to her when he saw her, and he said, he looked at her and he said, she has all the qualities that I need. So he had a discussion with her, and he asked her questions. And it was funny. He asked her all these questions. Would you be able to do this? Would you want to do this? Da, 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 da. And he just laid it off to her. And she's looking at him thinking, why are you asking me these questions? He says, answer the question, and I'll tell you why. When she finished answering, she says, yes, to most of them. And then finally when she says, but I'm not going to be any man's slave. He said, I'm not asking you to be my slave. I'm asking you to be my wife. She's kind of jumped and she jumped back at him and she said, what? He said, I'm asking you to be my wife. She said, but you don't even know me. You don't know if I go crazy. He says, if you are honest with all of this, in your words, you're honest with all of these, then I'm asking you to be my wife.
No, listen to what you said. Think about what you just said.
Yeah.
Because you said, I hear what you're going, but think about this. I'm going to go back to that, but here's an example.
Yeah.
You would agree there are many successful business people in the world who would not say they're followers of Christ.
Correct.
But yet they do have successful businesses.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you know this. You know where I'm going on this, right? Now, think about this now. The very principles that they're applying, very principles.
Are biblical principles.
Biblical principles.
Absolutely.
Some of them don't even know
exactly
the root of those principles.
Yes.
But they're working those principles.
Exactly.
Think about this now.
Yes.
So remember, God says, He's not a respecter of persons.
Absolutely. And
See that?
That's what
That's the same thing.
Yeah.
We're going back to this gentleman here. Whether he's ascribing it to God or not, what's happened, he's practicing a principle of God's word. Now I can tell you this. Think about this. He said certain things. He made certain quality decisions. See that? So he's acting in line with what God's word says.
Correct.
Now the challenge is this. Someone can be a Christian, but they're not doing
the principles of God.
What God's word says.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying? So I don't think so. We're not contradicting one another. We're in agreement. But it's a good distinction you're making. But I wanted to say this part when I alluded to Ephesians 6.
Right.
Is that there is a difference. Well, the way it's supposed to be is this. Correct. The way it's supposed to be is that as Christians we're supposed to be pursuing what does God say about this. And the fact what I'm saying is this. I was a Christian for many years. But this area of knowing, well, what does my wife need? I could be completely ignorant of that. I'm well-meaning, going to church, thinking I'm doing right, but I'm ignorant in that particular area. So we're saying husbands could be, and what's contributing sometimes to a poor relationship is husbands, they might have a good heart, they might love the Lord, but they're doing they're tripping up over the same thing.
Would you say the reason for that is, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head based on my own personal experience, I would say, that one of the reasons why we're tripping up over ourselves, because first of all, let's go back to planting. If you don't plant the seed right, or you don't put the plant right, or you don't set it right in the earth, you'll kill it just the same, even without not even watering it. Because you can plant it and overwater it and kill it. You can put it in bad soil. You can also take what we call transplant. Take a plant from the little suckling and put it into the ground in an infested area, and within weeks the plant dies. The thing is,
That's a
about
good
that.
example. That's very good.
The thing is, no, you should go there with me.
No, I was like spoken like a gardener here, but go ahead. No,
But,
that's good. I appreciate
the
that.
thing is that it's the exact same thing we do as Christians or non-Christians alike when we take into marriage. First of all, we don't find or plant the right seed. We don't find the right ground to plant on. Second of all, and these things could contribute to the fact that we got into marriage because of convenience. We got into marriage because because we got caught in a situation, we got roped in or fished in, whatever you want to call it. So here's the thing now, and I'm only using this because I've recently discovered this, that I plant outside. For 2 years I planted and got very little crop. So I decided to change the area from where I'm planting, and I planted the opposite side, and I reaped. But while my plant was growing, the same infestation that I was having over on the other side, I began to have on the other side, right?
Oh.
And we must...
Why? Why was that?
Why was that? It was the infestation of these little bugs that are eating the leaves of the plant, which kills the plant.
So they were both in both sides.
At the beginning, it wasn't like that,
Gotcha.
but it started to happen again.
Gotcha.
So I'm thinking, and one of the things I must understand, I must admit the fact that even though I went to the other side, it's still the same surrounding area, still the same community, so to speak.
Gotcha.
But we must admit to ourselves we have a problem.
Very good.
The minute you stop to think that I'm not at fault, it's not my fault. I didn't do anything. I was right. I would do all these
That's
things,
excellent.
kind of stuff, especially from a female standpoint. So, well, I did all this for him, and he's doing nothing for me. The point is that you and males do the same thing too. Well, I've been doing this and I'm doing that. You gotta admit, first of all, you're coming together. Your covenant agreement was not a covenant agreement, but it was our commitment. It was a commitment that had no substance or foundation. So you have to either find something to treat it, or you're gonna have a dead plant.
That's good. You said a lot of good things here, but let's see, some things you said, well, there's a number of good things. You mentioned really condition. You planted the seed, and sometimes there's different conditions that are not conducive to a healthy plant. And let's go back to that friend of yours who you said would not like to be referred to as a Christian.
Is that a friend? Is that somebody that I
No, but someone you know. But think about this. One of the first things I heard, he made a quality decision.
Correct.
People don't realize the power of a decision.
Correct.
He said, you know what? He saw what his maybe forefathers, all these people did. He says, I don't want that. Sometimes we underestimate the power of a decision. He said this, I'm not going to have that. In his heart, he says, I will not replicate that.
Correct. Absolutely.
That's powerful. So the thing is this. So one of the things we're saying then in marriage is that every wife does need, need permanent commitment.
Yes.
Where she knows. So I think, go back to something you alluded to, and we need to say this then, because you said this, we need to admit. So we're talking about men now. We're talking about husbands, not particularly. So as a husband, I had to realize that, not be a prideful, ego person, say, you know what? I don't know what I need to know. Like it's almost like putting my arms up, God, I need some help here. I have to admit, I need to figure this out. I need to know, what does my wife need? Now, if I act like a know-it-all and I don't know anything, then I'm going to keep going over this, running around the circle, right? Like that, the gerbil in those things. I'm just going to keep running. No, so we've got to admit, or like you said, admit that we are making mistakes. So again, we'll talk to the female side later, but we're talking right now about husbands and realizing.
Now, here's the other part, talking about the covenant agreement. Like, for example, a man may marry a woman just because he got her pregnant.
Okay.
So he has to admit the fact that, did I marry her because I really wanted her to be my wife, or I married her because she was pregnant and I'm just trying to cover the shame, so to speak, and years down the road because I recognize this is not what I wanted to be with. You know what I'm saying? So then,
so you hit another thing then. If you do that, so what I'm saying in that condition, that if, let's say, the circumstances of their marriage was that, but somewhere down the line, if he doesn't change it by saying, you know what, this is how we begin, but I make the decision, I'm committed to you. You see that?
I'm loving
like it's got to have to make. That's you see that. So now he has to make the change.
Because you're saying that, and I'm gonna flip this at you again.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
He didn't make the decision.
Okay. Well, the thing is this: for it to work.
Yeah.
For it to work.
Yeah.
Because if he doesn't, more than likely, if she made the decision, but he didn't.
Right.
What I'm saying is, unless he makes that quality decision, which will change the relationship, then sooner or later, might be sooner, it might be later, you see, some negative things are going to transpire.
Right.
So again, like you know, you're the planter, you're the farmer there.
Yeah.
Well, you're the gardener. Well, the fact, and you know this better than most, and the fact is this: you still have the wrong conditions for a healthy relationship.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So my thing is to you then is what I'm asking. You have to see this way.
Okay, go ahead.
Right. So my thing is if you were forced into a relationship, I'm talking about the man, because the man is the one who's offering the permanent covenant, love and affection, and this kind of stuff.
That's what he's supposed to give.
This is supposed to give.
Yeah.
And he's pretty much, some people like to say, conned into, forced into, kind of sucked into it. And later on find out that this is not what he really wanted. And he may be finding all the negative things about the wife, especially if the wife is also offering up negative things towards him. How do you speak to someone like that in terms of getting to them to even understand? Because remember, there's a lot of negativity that was poured into that ground in the first place, and you're trying to get this plant to survive. But all these elements and all these bugs and all these bad conditions are there. How does one get to keep the plant on a survival mode? Now, I know what I can do with the ground to keep it in a survival mode. You got to treat the ground first of all. You got to come with things to treat the bugs that are around and create the ground to make it a more I can't find the word, a more lucrative type of ground. Where that's not the right word, but I'm using that for now. To make sure that the plant can actually survive.
Got you.
Right?
Let me say this side. Can I say this side here? When I come at it from one of the things, God gets a bad rap, if you will.
Of course.
Because what happens is this. The reason why Jesus told us to preach the gospel is this. Because we're not talking about religion.
Right.
We're talking about God was saying this. You know what? I want to be part of your life.
Correct.
Really wants to be the center of your life because he wants to help you. You see that? So that's part of why, because people, for the most part, many people, including many Christians, they have the wrong concept of God over years. A lot wrong, really wrong. So they don't see God as the life giver. They don't see God as the one who's there to help them. So that's one side I wanted to address, where God is saying this: will you allow me to help you in your marriage? So the unbeliever is outside. And so God's saying, will you allow me to come into your life? Because I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to help you. Now, for the believer, he's saying, well, now, will you actually believe me and live by my word? So the end result is still the same, but get into what you said there. So I still say, for what you just said, or the question you're posing is this. And I can only, let me personalize it.
Go ahead.
Let me personalize a little bit. So the thing is this. When I realized for years that I loved my wife, she loved me, very committed. But you see, we come from different backgrounds, and that's part of the challenge. Is we come from different backgrounds, and over time we get hardened. See, we get hardened in our ways. But the thing is this: in our hearts, if a husband and wife make the decision, you know what? I really want this to work. That is a decision. Now, with that is going to come some work, though. There's going to have to come some changes on the inside of us where we're changed. So we've got to change.
Yeah.
That's changing the ground.
Yeah, changing the ground, yes.
So the thing is this, oftentimes we're so caught up on changing the other person that we're not changing ourselves
to make it work.
To make it work. So there's some, so again, that's why we're going to go back to, you got to make, so someone who's in a bad relationship, someone's in a bad relationship right now. So then the husband has to, and again, we're talking about from the male side right now. Then the husband's going to have to say, you know what? I don't want this kind of relationship. I don't want what we've got. They've got to be honest. We've got to be honest. I don't want what we've got. And I'm going to do, I want a better relationship. I want the best marriage. I want better than this. I don't want to live in hell for the rest of my life. Because that's the bad thing.
Exactly.
Is if you're projecting 20 years, you mean this is what I've got and it's going to get worse? Well, no, that ain't God's will. So that means, though, the thing is this then, by decision, number one, you got to admit, you said it, there's a problem. We got a problem.
Yep.
Houston, we got a problem.
Yep.
But then we got to say, God, I want better than this. I will have better than this. I'm making a decision, and I'm making a decision to do my part to make this marriage the very best. Now, that's the first part, and it's important. But then after that, it's going to come some work. Because the fruit is not going to be, it's just not automatic.
Correct.
Like you said, we've got to treat the soil. We've got to work on some things about us. So that's what I'm saying. On the male side then, he's going to have to work on some of these things we're talking about. Which is a permanent commitment.
Correct.
So when he sees his wife, you know what? He's going to have to make the decision. And of course, that can be initially challenging when he's faced so much negativity from his wife. When she's, been problematic in certain areas,
Right.
whatever. And we're going to talk about the woman maybe next week or whatever, because we're going to talk about that real strong. But anyway, but think about this, Lamont. Your wife, to that soil, you would make that decision. I'm committed to her. Every wife needs her husband to be committed to her. Number two, she needs a husband who will love, accept, and affirm her. Now, the thing is this, part of the challenge for us in marriage is this. The things God tells us to do, they're not automatic. And it's interesting, none of them tells us, I never said this, well, because you feel like it. Because I think part of our challenge with love in North America is it's so attached to feeling. And what I learned early is this, the thing is this, you make the decision, you do the action, and the feelings come. What we do, most of our love in America, and because of what it's been so media driven in the wrong understanding of sex and love and all that, is this, is we go by feeling. So if I feel, I'll do it. No. What your wife needs commitment. She needs love, affirmation, and affection. That is a need. And it's not because, think about this now, she deserves it. It's not a shock.
Right.
You see that? But she needs it. And if she doesn't get it, a man could be starving his marriage, or could be, we could say, is complicit in the destruction of his marriage.
We asked the question, how about the other way around? If you would mind clarifying that question you asked,
Which one?
how about the other way around? Somebody just asked, how about the other way around? When you say how about the other way around, what are we really talking about here? Because you're talking about a man.
Okay. Well, I didn't want to get to the other way. I didn't want to get.
No,
well,
I'm
okay, that's
asking
fine.
that
That's
person-
fine. That's
I'm asking
fine.
the person to clarify it because I know they're here.
Oh, you're trying to clarify. Yeah.
Yeah.
What does she mean by? Yeah. What do you mean by the other way around? That's a good point. Yeah. So once we get that, then we can probably address it. But let me go on a little bit here. So love, affection. So a wife needs unconditional love, right? A husband who will stick with her regardless of circumstances, regardless of what they face. And and there's oftentimes men will face the temptation to be bitter. And it's interesting, Colossians 3:19 says this, husbands, love your wives, think about this now, and don't be bitter against them. Now, why would it see God's word is very practical. He knows that your wife's going to say things, will deposit things in you, that if left unchecked, if it's kept in your heart, you're going to have bitterness. And the picture I see is this, because you're a gardener, so instead of having a fountain of love that's flowing out into her, you can have bitterness. See, he says, husband, love your wives and don't be bitter against her. See that? So that's why one of the biggest things we've got to be as husbands, or I should write this one down, put it for myself, we need to be forgiving. You're going to have to be constantly forgiving. Now, it doesn't mean then you're the big, holy, right person all the time.
Or you're not the daddy either.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is this, is because those things, if they're not checked, can cause bitterness in our relationship. So you want to be the husband who's putting out love, affirmation, and affection consistently in your wife. The opposite is, suppose if you're bitter, Colossians 3:19, then you're putting bitterness. You're putting out resentment. You're putting malice, ill will. So again, think of the garden. You're putting that bitterness. So every time your wife touches, every time there's an interaction, bitterness is coming out. Well, what's going to happen to the relationship over the years? So we could say this way, ladies, you should let any man who's married, any husband, let them listen to this. Really, because it will really help them. I'm telling you, I'll just say, because we've got to be, there's an area of being transparent. Okay. In our younger marriage, my wife and I, part of the challenge was when you have sometimes two strong-willed people. So you're strong, your wife, your spouse is a strong person, knows who she is, you know who you are, and you know where you're going, she knows where she's going. So oftentimes what happens, both of you have to learn how to yield and submit to one another. Right. But the thing is this, sometimes your wife can say something and it can get to you. Part of my challenge was making sure I didn't hold on to things and then be resentful towards my wife, and then when she said something later on, I'm responding not to what she just said, but what she said maybe 2 days ago, that I still held on to in a negative way. Did you hear what I'm saying there? Yeah. And so it's learning who we are, learning some of the challenges, quirks, foibles, errors, sins in our own hearts and lives, and weaknesses in our own heart, and coming to grips with them and asking God for his help so that we can be a better channel of blessing in the relationship. The problem is this, is that in a marriage, two people are sowing into that marriage.
Right.
The problem is this, so the challenge, suppose both people are putting out only negative things, bitterness, hate, resentment, like the soil, it's getting bad. See, they've poisoned their own soil.
Yeah. I like what you just said. Two people pouring in to the marriage.
To that one thing.
Yeah. In some cases, and I'm going to say this because I've heard this over and over from women saying this. And I remember one woman said this to me. We were not told to love the husband. The husband was told to love us, so we don't have to love him. I'm like,
No,
that's not scriptural at all. Don't even go there. That's because I'll take it to a few scriptures and it says, teach the young women how to love their husbands.
Exactly.
Right? So it says you need to do that as well. But the interesting thing, as you're saying, both pouring into it. Now, one could be pouring in, and the other one is taking out.
Okay, can I say this real quick? Because you just hit on something that's a great point. It's interesting how we're talking about the primary need of a wife is, we said this, is commitment and love, affirmation, and affection. Isn't that interesting?
Right.
It didn't say sex at the top.
No.
No.
It didn't.
But is that important?
It is.
Yes. Now, let's go for, and also respect. Does a wife need respect?
Of course.
Yes, she does.
Of course.
But you notice it's lower on the other, it's kind of lower on the scale, some of these things. Now, for the man, we're going to look at this side. Because you just said something that was a great point. So the husband needs to be loved.
Correct.
Right?
Absolutely.
However, and this is what a lot of women don't realize, what's more important, I almost can't believe I'm about to say this, think about this now. What's more important to that man than love? You wonder what I'm going to say?
I'm waiting.
Respect.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You got that?
Absolutely.
So the thing is this. If I'm getting ahead of myself, you see, that's why this is for next week. Okay?
Even if you go next week, we may still come back to this because we haven't
finished with this part. But the thing is, I'm jumping ahead. But we're going to come back to the what husbands need to give their wives, or what wives need. So jumping ahead a little bit, though, is this. I'm just trying to say all these things are necessary. But if a wife then she loves her husband, and I'm not questioning her love. Yeah. And of course that's shown by her affection, she's always thinking about him, giving him gifts, but she can be undermining that by her lack of respect for him. So how she talks about him, how she talks about him in front of other people, other women. So she's always undercutting him, always criticizing him. Now she'll say she loves him, but guess what? You know how he hears that?
Oh.
He's not hearing love. He's hearing disrespect, dishonor, and we'll get into that. We will get into that a lot of times, because a lot of times, so women don't realize it, is that they'll swear that I love my wife, I love my husband, I love my husband. But what the husband is hearing through their words, through their actions, oftentimes is the lack of respect, the lack of honor. And I'm telling you, one of the biggest destroyers of marriages on the female side is the dishonor, is the disrespect, is the irreverence that wives have for their husbands. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's a biggie. But to do it justice, we're going to do that later.
But I wanted to allude to this because I always talk about my son. Right? I mean, I have a son that's married.
Yeah, you're proud. And that's beautiful.
Yeah, it is a nice feeling, right? I know the next part is being a granddaddy, but anyway, Dad, don't even go there. Anyways, but the point is that we were talking about the wife disrespecting. Sometimes the husband don't even have to hear what she says, and she could say it behind his back or to people that may not even know who he is and so forth. But spirit to spirit. So if your spirit man is saying that, you might say it in a moment because you're upset, but once those words goes out, it takes effect immediately, and if you don't nullify it, it comes back. So you come home now and you think you're showing love to your husband, or vice versa, showing love to your wife, but in other words, you're showing the exact thing that you said, because it's taking root now and it's action out, and you're thinking you're doing this and you're not. So this is the other thing we need to address as well. But here's the most beautiful thing. As I was my son last night, today's his birthday, and that's when we decided we do a little small celebration for him. Well, he pulled his own small celebration. He said to us, welcome to everyone. Thank you very much. Welcome to all you. But he turned around. I asked my daughter-in-law, I said, how is marriage? She says, oh, great, it's wonderful. I said, that's good to hear. I'm loving this. You guys keep this. I pray for you guys every day, right? She said, you know what it's like? Is living with a roommate that you really love living with. I thought, that is nice. Because that's what she said. It's like living with a roommate that you love living with. And she says, you ever have roommates that you don't like to be with? You have to be a roommate with them? But it's living with a roommate that you love. You get up in the morning, you enjoy the same things, even if you might be different in how you handle it, but you enjoy the presence of your roommate. And I thought, that is good. And I thought to myself, I gotta share that tomorrow. Right? Because that was her expression, and his expression was that he said, I love this woman. He said, and I said to him, don't let it die. He said, no, Dad, every day it grows. And I was like, I like that too. He said to me, and I said to him, it's like a plant that if you water it right and you give it the right fertilization, it grows even bigger and produce even more fruit that you can actually imagine. And he said, yeah. And I said, I'm talking about the other fruit now. And he's like, don't do that. But listen, I know we're coming down to 2 minutes. 2 minutes left, and we want to thank the listeners for locking in. We're not finished with this by a long shot because there's so much more that we can.
Yeah, we're going to go into what we want to look into next time is just some of the expressions. We said a woman needs, a second point, needs love, affirmation, and affection. So we want to look at some of the specific expressions of love, affection, and affirmation that a wife needs and that a husband needs to supply to his wife. And if we do this correctly, it begins to nurture. Like you talked about planting, you're nurturing that flower. You're giving the things it needs so that it can blossom and grow and do well. And so that's our intention.
We have 1 minute left, and I just want you to reiterate again the programs that we have coming up this Saturday.
Oh, thanks so much.
And also to the book.
Yes, so next, thanks again for tuning in to Rebuilding the Black Family with Clement and myself. Really appreciate you tuning in and also letting other people know. But as Clement alluded to, this Saturday, the September the 16th, those of you who are pastors, ministers, or a church leader, someone who's a leader in the church, we invite you to the launch of our ministerial fellowship at 55 Beverly Hills Drive in Toronto, Ontario, this coming Saturday at 2 p.m. So look forward to having you. Also, Foundation for Leaders 101. My new book is called Foundation for Leaders 101, Developing Leaders in the Local Church. You can get that on Amazon.com and Amazon.ca. So until next time, God's richest and best be yours, and continue to build your life and family on the sure foundation.
You found this program helpful. Please give us your feedback on our Facebook page, Foundation for Life Church. Also, visit us at foundationforlife.ca, where you will find some free life-building resources. Join us next time for another edition of Rebuilding the Black Family. Until then, build your life and family on the sure foundation of Jesus Christ.